Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Constantine Potamianos of Black Bull Advisors. Constantine, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Hall. Thank you for having me.
So what was your background before starting to invest in early stage companies?
Well, okay, let's start from where we are now and kind of I'll work you through to how we got there. Currently, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Black Bull Advisors. We're a hedge fund that utilizes proprietary artificial intelligence technology to direct and manage technical trading within the crypto space. We're primarily a crypto-focused fund. How I got there actually is an interesting story, and it's a roundabout story. It blends technology, finance, and entrepreneurship. I'm originally from Southern California. I started in engineering at Caltech. I ended up with undergraduate degrees in computer science, government, and economics. Then I went on to get my MBA and law degree from Georgetown. I tell people I'm an academic masochist, but 5 degrees later, the background has been tremendously helpful in bringing a multidisciplinary perspective to business problems and management and investing. I started 2 technology companies in the Washington, D.C. area, one in the IT networking and applications development space, and then a second one in the radio frequency engineering space, where we worked with equipment providers and cellular operators across 4 continents. At that point, I was bitten by the entrepreneurial bug and it has stayed with me since. After that, I was asked to go up to New York, and I spent a number of years up there working in the corporate law and technology investment banking sectors. I had a chance to see and work with a lot of early stage and developing technology companies, kind of running them through the challenges of starting up, building teams, contracting with partners, and raising funds, of course. And then there's a whole other side to my background, if that wasn't enough, which is the military and special operations side. I spent a total of 25 years in service, a combination of active, reserve, guard, other agency service. And that gave me a whole other perspective on team dynamics and operational planning and leadership. About 3.5 years ago, I decided I wanted a change of scenery. Really, I kind of wanted warmer weather. I got tired of the New York winters. I'd had my eye on Austin for a few years. I had previously bought a house out here, and right around the beginning of 2016, I decided to come on down and make Austin my primary of operations. And I've been loving it here ever since, and it's where I met my co-founder of my current fund, Black Bull Advisors. So that kind of gives you a little idea of my background.
Well, that's great. That's quite a career and quite a history there. So our audience of investors is always interested in learning more about how to invest in early stage. So what's your advice for people that are just now starting to invest in this sector?
You know what? My advice is simple, and it applies across sectors. It's simply focus on the people. I did that in the military. I did it when I started my technologies companies. We did it in the technology investment banking side when we contemplated investing in a company. And I continue to do it now every time I look at a new company. By the way, this is not to the exclusion of other factors, such as weighing the business idea in the marketplace. But I truly put the most weight on the people that I expect to execute on an otherwise interesting business idea. I like this saying that comes from Bill Gates, and it goes something like this, and it resonated with me. He said, there's an essential human factor in every business endeavor. It doesn't matter if you have a perfect product, production plan, and marketing pitch, you'll still need the right people to lead and implement those plans. And I like to get to know companies outside of the funding pressure cooker. I'm fortunate and humbled, actually, to have been asked to mentor at practically every major accelerator here in Austin. Techstars, Nest Challenge, Capital Factory, Bunker Labs, Patriot Boot Camp. In addition to giving back to fellow entrepreneurs, it gives me a peek into the people and thinking of each company I get involved with.
Well, that's great. That's good advice, focusing on the team. That's always a key for any investment. So you've seen the industry over a number of years. How do you see the state of investing today? How is the industry evolving?
You know what? To a certain extent, I see the entire funding marketplace in a little bit of a flux. Over the last 2-3 years, we're talking about. Crowdfunding has allowed companies to bring product-specific initiatives to market in a way that just wasn't possible before. Now we're seeing changes in rules around private placements and the provision of a mechanism for companies to raise capital through public general solicitation. And as I'm sure you know, and investors know, that was a huge no-no for anything except an expensive SEC-registered offering in the past. And then finally, blockchain and tokenization and the rise of crypto are provided needing funding mechanisms for companies that just weren't there a few years ago.
Well, it seems like there's a lot more tools available today, and it is moving forward and it's still evolving and changing for sure. But as you make your investments into the marketplace, what's your investment thesis for your startups?
My thesis is, well, okay, let me back up a sec. There's a couple of things. First of all, we're looking for what can potentially have an impact in the marketplace. For us at Black Bull Advisors, for example, operating a hedge fund in the crypto space, the biggest impact is volatility. We approach it from a technical trading perspective, so we thrive on volatility in the markets. We make profits whether the market is moving up or down. And that's led to disproportionately high returns for us versus the market as a whole. The same applies, I think, to investing in a startup. Investors say that they're looking for disruptive companies, but a disruptive company is going to create in the market and be subject to high volatility. That's what differentiates the home run unicorns from, by the way, perfectly respectable base hits. Both can provide positive returns, but getting on the right side of disruptive volatility is what can lead to outsized returns that blow the rest of the marketplace away. And for startups, my investment thesis is pretty simple, and it's prioritized as follows. Number one, get confidence in the team. Number two, get confidence in the idea. And number three, get confidence in the marketing. The rest can be massaged into place with the right team, a lot of hard work, and a little bit of luck. It always takes a little bit of luck. Trust me, I've seen this. But those other factors, and the primary one being the team, is truly important, in my opinion.
Well, that's great. Are there any startups that fit that thesis as examples you can mention?
Sure. Okay. Well, I've been lucky. 2 companies last year that I mentored for in Mass Challenge went on to be big prize winners at the end of the program. A company by the name of Sempulse and another company by the name of Augmenta. So what I initially saw in them, the rest of the Mass Challenge team saw as well. Currently, I'm working with a company called Your Six, which was founded by a fellow Army Special Operations veteran that is successfully bringing AI to the very real problem of matching veterans with specific but little understood skill sets to the corporate world. And then most recently, I met with Traxel, which was founded by an ex-intelligence agency operator that deploys last-mile fiber connectivity in a completely novel and efficient manner. And all of these companies have one thing in common, which is a strong, disciplined, and smart leadership. I'm trying to think of anybody else. There's probably a ton of companies that I'm not mentioning, but some of those were the ones that kind of immediately came to mind.
Great. Well, those sound like good examples. So you see a lot of companies in this space, and what do you think the challenges they face in today's market with regards to the regulatory or the market or the technology? Where do you see the start spending their time trying to overcome?
Sure. Well, let me talk a little bit specifically about Austin, because coming as an outsider to Austin and kind of coming out of the finance and investment community, it gave me an insight. And one of the things that struck me about Austin when I first came here is what I saw as a significant funding gap. There were a lot of angel investors, but not a lot for the next level at that time. So companies would get their angel round, and then it seemed like many of them would wither on the vine when they sought their next round. And I evangelized anyone and everyone that I spoke with and told them that what Austin needed was to kind of get out of a silo mentality, and that the influencers here in town needed to start to build bridges to the capital on the coasts and elsewhere, because we have such a fantastic ecosystem here of startups. I think that is starting to happen. And if I may be honest about it, I think that folks like you with the 10 capital that you're building nationally, that's an awesome part of that and a truly important part of that. And I think it's so important for someone to be an ambassador for these companies. When I was in New York and we had an interesting company, I would call my friends on Sand Hill Road or in Boston and say, hey guys, I'm swinging through your neck of the woods with an interesting company. I think you'll want to hear what they have to say. And they would usually say, sure, Constantine, because they knew us, they knew we had committed our capital to the company, and they knew we weren't interested in wasting our time, let alone their time, with a less than promising company. And so a promising company would get in the door to pitch them when odds are that they would not get in the door otherwise.
Yeah, funding's always been a big challenge. What else do you see out there?
Well, in terms of challenges, I think that's kind of the big one for Austin in per se. I also think there are certain sectors and applications that are opportunities to pursue that stand a strong chance of kind of overcoming these challenges.
Great. So you see a lot of applications and sectors out there in the market today. If you had to pick a couple of them, 2 or 3 that you think are really ripe for investment or opportunity, what 2 or 3 would you put at the top of the list in today's market?
Sure. Okay, so I talk about one that's kind of near and dear to our heart because we're using it effectively in what we're doing in the fund, and that's the application of artificial intelligence. I truly do believe I've been around long enough where there was this initial push for artificial intelligence in the late 70s and the 80s, where we thought it was going to be a breakout moment, and it truly wasn't. But I do think that the technology has reached a place where we are now at that breakout moment. And I think artificial intelligence is going to impact and potentially revolutionize a lot of different applications. As I said, I'm partial to it because we use it in our hedge fund to identify beneficial trends in the marketplace. But I know I'm not saying anything new here. We know that it's always held promise. I mean, finally, heck, even my friend Bob Metcalf just recently decided to join Spark Cognition. So I think the tide is for real. And I'm excited to see it happen here in Austin and in other parts of the country. But that's kind of the bleeding edge of technology that I'm excited about. But there's a whole flip side to that, which some people will say is the opposite end of the spectrum. But this bleeding edge stuff also requires the basic, like technology infrastructure. Take 5G. Everybody's talking about it. We're expecting blazing fast wireless speed, which is awesome, right? But how is this signal going to be propagated? It's going to need basically high-speed fiber going to a lot of antennas which don't have fiber right now. That's why a company like Traxel that I mentioned a little bit earlier that deploys last-mile fiber connectivity in a completely novel and efficient way is so exciting to me personally.
That's great. Those are good applications out there. Looks like there's a good opportunity here in Austin as well for anybody that wants to do a startup. But in the last few minutes that we have here today, what else should we cover that we haven't?
Sure. All right. Let me come back to one aspect, which is the people and the tie-in to military special operations. I cannot stress enough how important small team dynamics are to the success or failure of a startup. Establishing a team of smart and confident team players that are willing to carry each other's weight if and as required during good times and bad is what will distinguish a winning company from a loser, in my opinion. As an entrepreneur and leader, selecting the members of your team is absolutely critical. And I think it's critical from an investor standpoint as well when you're evaluating a potential investment. And it's also critical to remember and recognize that success or failure is a team effort. As an entrepreneur starting a company, no one person can take all the credit and the riches. And I'm talking to a lot of CEOs and founders out there. And no company can survive finger pointing or blame when the times are tough.
Well, that's a good point. The team is critical, and how they work together is even more important. Those are really key points to make. So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I am around town through all the accelerators, Techstars, Mass Challenge, Capital Factory, Bunker Labs, Patriot Bootcamp. I'm also available at the fund through Constantine Potamianos at blackbulladvisors.com. And I'll let them look up the name on your website rather than trying to spell that out. And it's also on our website, blackbulladvisors.com. And I'm happy to talk about any subjects that we talked about today or about our hedge fund. I think about the time this hits the airwaves, we're going to be in the process of opening up our hedge fund to new investors. So it's going to be a busy time. So if you do reach out to me, just kind of bear with me if you email me. And I may not be able to get back to you immediately, but I will definitely get back to you. I really kind of enjoy helping the Austin technology ecosystem kind of grow and develop. And once again, Hall, I got to say, I really do appreciate what you're doing with 10 Capital. This is exactly what I've been saying the local scene needs. And I know you're doing it outside of Texas as well, but this is awesome. This is absolutely incredible.
Well, great. Well, appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
You're welcome, Hall. Have a great afternoon.
You as well. Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.